And internet censorship will affect freedom of the press. What will be legal in print will be illegal online. Because there's more defenses about what's in print. Well, there's just one collective yawn, and no, we couldn't get the press to pay any attention. Well, finally, 3 years ago, radical Arabs laid complaints against a Jewish writer, a Jewish publisher of what was then called Western Standard, because he had the temerity to reproduce the Danish cartoons. Every paper in Canada talked about the big controversy and the riots and all that, but only Ezra Levant and one other publication actually showed their readers what the fuss was all about. Other publications didn't want to ruffle Muslim sensibilities, but he did. Well, he found himself the subject of a human rights complaint before the Alberta Human Rights Commission, and he really began to fight it. He fought very, very hard and publicly. And he actually put up on the internet a video of his being examined by a Human Rights Commission examiner, and he just made her look so stupid. At the same time, radical Muslims also complained to 3 Human Rights Commissions, including the Canadian Human Rights Commission, about the excerpting in the National, in Maclean's magazine, of a chapter from Mark Stein's book about the Islamicization of Europe. Well, he said that was hate. Why? Well, because obviously, if the Islamicization of Europe is a bad thing, that means Muslims aren't as good as Christian Europeans, and so that's prejudice, and so they're not being treated equally. Well, you get the drift. So that was on. And suddenly I think Maclean's lawyers were called in, and what I knew through the grapevine is they didn't have very good news. They finally looked over the law, they looked over the unending series of convictions, and they probably told the board of directors of Maclean's, and Maclean's is the Time magazine of Canada, so it's big in its establishment. He probably told them, as they would tell them in Shanghai, you're a flop. You can't win. You're not going to win this one. Nobody's won, ever won. You can't do it. And suddenly, the media turned around. And today, you cannot read anything good about human rights commissions, not just on the internet issue, but just their endless harassment of businesses and so on. The Canadian media has turned, and Tony Hilton will agree with me on this, they've turned from relatively pretty supportive to just out and out hostile, and editorial after editorial calling for the Section 13(1) to be abolished. Even Liberal members of Parliament introducing private members' bills. So anyway, on the 2nd of September, we won. But I say we only won partially. He ruled the law unconstitutional because it was no longer, as the Supreme Court had upheld in 1990, it was no longer remedial, it was punitive. If they can fine you, that's a punishment. If they can send you to jail, that's a punishment. So we wanted it ruled unconstitutional for other reasons as well. That really, this law should never have existed. Not that it goes too far, but it should never have existed because there was no problem. Minorities aren't damaged by remarks that are contrary to their interests or belief. So the Human Rights Commission decided on October the 1st to appeal, or literally seek judicial review, and that's going to be heard sometime later this year. So we won an important, battle, and we haven't won the war, but defending the internet for reasons that I know are painfully obvious to everybody here, it is our most effective weapon for reaching new people. It's absolutely vital, and that's the battle we find ourselves in. And thank you.
Paul, thanks for your question. What would the exact language that they're using to describe as minorities? Was it privileged minorities?
No, that's my term. No, what they do is, the legislation is on the basis of race, religion, sexual orientation, physical disability, mental handicap. I call them privileged minorities. If you're not a member of the minority, you can say anything they want to. No non-white has ever been convicted. Sorry. Well, yes and no. Under the hate law, the chief of the former Grand Chief of the Saskatchewan Assembly of First Nations, Chief David Hanke, was entrapped by a reporter who didn't like him, and he made some very haunting comments about World War II. The wild exaggeration, I don't want to do this. But anyway, Chief Hanke was charged under the federal hate law. Doug Christie defended him. We supported the chief. He was convicted, appealed, sent him back for another trial. The second trial acquitted him. So, yeah, he was the only non-white ever to be brought before the state. That was a hate law.
You mentioned, the phone calls stopped when they fired you.
Yes.
Have we not learned now that's when our phone calls should have started?
I think the union leader kind of pointed in a direction. Maybe we're just too good. I mean, how many people have we hassled in the past week? Those hotel owners should be worrying about the phone calls, and I mean peaceful, non-competitive phone calls they get from us. I mean, we've all been inconvenienced. I mean, some people have lost a lot of money who aren't here. We've been hurt. Not only our right to meet and socialize, but every one of us has been inconvenienced to one extent or another. We should be angry, and somebody should pay.
The problem is when you threaten, the problem is in a hotel, when you threaten an employee with death paid, you're going to shoot them. The owner of that hotel sees tremendous liability. They have to do something.
I'll call the police.
Well, they got to do something.
Okay. So is the lesson from that, and I asked this rhetorically, is the lesson from that terrorism works?
Yes. To a certain extent it does.
Well, okay. An interesting lesson. I tried to warn.
That's why we're here.
I tried to warn the Human Rights Commissioners. If you convict my guy, you're beating up on a partly educated young fellow who spent his own life trying to do something good. Do you want to deal with the men of the word or the men of the sword? And what we'd be telling people is, look, write your ideas, organize legitimately, leaflets, do those things. Or do you want the other option? Hey, why should I go to jail for writing a pamphlet or writing on the internet? If I feel strongly, I will go out and... So, I think that what the happened this past week really does emphasize that terrorism works.
Right, that's why we're here.
Well, how can we counteract it?
Well, I think one of the problems is the law of the land. This is the law of the land. So is the law of the land our land?